Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, a show for people who are obsessed with all things marketing. I'm your host, Veronica, Romney, certified master marketer, international keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, and the author of a new book called Identity Marketing. Each week, I interview rainmakers from brands big and small to pull back the curtain on what's actually working in marketing today. We dig into real life wins and losses and their very real consequences, and get into spicy discussions of marketing controversies and opposing philosophies. This is the real marketing thought leadership you've been looking for in your ears on demand. This is the Rainmaker Podcast. You guys, this podcast episode was a dream to make, and it's because my guest is so dreamy. Mandy Balak, the president, the newly appointed president of The Gathering, is, first of all, she's a former Rainmaker podcast listener turned guest. That's how I even got the speaking opportunity that I did in Banff at The Gathering, was because she heard me on the podcast talking about speaking. I've brought her back to talk about her identity shift, because most people go from working full-time to then doing their own thing full-time. She did the opposite. She was an entrepreneur for over 10 years, and now she's full-time president of this colossal community and vision, and one of the best marketing events I have ever been to. If you do not have The Gathering on your calendar for this year in attendance, please buy your ticket right now, and then you can thank me later, because I promise it's the best thing you'll ever do. She came on the podcast and we had some of the, I think, most vulnerable and raw discussion around what leadership really is, what resentment can really do to an organization and where it comes from, how to deal with it. And she gave it from her unique perspective and experience and mine. And it was just a really, really good conversation around leadership, vision, community that I just know you're going to love. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, Mandy. Mandy, welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Okay, this is serendipitous, because the only reason that I know you is because you were listening to my podcast unbeknownst to me. And then because you were listening to the podcast, you introduced me and invited me to speak on your stage. You're like, hey, would you ever be interested in speaking at The Gathering? I'm like, yeah, what's The Gathering? Little do I know, The Gathering is probably the greatest marketing event that I've ever participated in my freaking lifetime. I'm obsessed, all things. And it's because you were a listener and now you're a guest on the podcast. How cool is that?
I love it. I love when those dots connect and the seeds that get planted and all of it. And yeah, it's a moment for me too, because even when you responded to my email the first time, that was a total fangirl moment for me, because I had been listening to you and I was like, wow, this woman, she's so well spoken. I love everything that you stand for. I loved all the speakers that you had. It was a part of my weekly rituals, taking Tony for a walk, my Frenchie, and I was like, what does Veronica have to say? And it was actually because I can't remember the exact episode, but you were talking about how you were wanting to speak more.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, this is my chance. This is the sign that we need to be connected. And I'm so grateful that it worked out and you added so much value to our conference this year. And it's just the beginning for us.
It again, I've spoken on some stages, but and it may be because it's all Canadians and I'm just obsessed with Canadians. You guys are the nicest. No, but that's not true. There is something really magical about what you guys have created in Banff. And I actually feel foolish that this is the 11th year that you've ran it, and I just became aware of it because you invited me to it. So I feel a little bit egg on my face. How did I not know this existed? It's so special, and it's only in this really beautiful part of Canada. If you've ever been to Banff or the Fairmont, it's so, I don't know, it's spectacular is what it is. And you guys just have this way of bringing some of the biggest effing names on your stage, and yet they're also walking amongst you in the corridors, in the hallways. So they're not above anyone, and everybody's accessible to everybody at all levels. And you have the who's who of the marketing world attending in North America. I mean, I'm still, honestly, I'll be really vulnerable. I still have imposter syndrome that I was there, because I'm not the VP of marketing of Mattel, and I'm not the chief marketing officer at Netflix. I was, Veronica representing Veronica. But it wasn't, I wouldn't have been there had you not invited me. So I just want to,
Well, you were one
again,
of my picks and you did me proud. You
I
did me
wanted
proud. Yeah.
to.
Well, we have been like a best kept secret for many years.
Yeah.
So you're not the only one. I think a lot of people are like, wow, I didn't know that this existed. And that's kind of part of the magic of the gathering. I mean, typical brand or marketing
Hmm.
industry conferences you go to, there's like 15,000 people.
Hmm.
We are intimate. Like there's
Hmm.
1,500 people there and it's intimate by nature. And I think that provides this really beautiful experience for not only the attendees but for the speakers, and it's why we've been able to attract really big names and really big brands is because they get to be a part of the experience as well. This is not the type of conference where the speakers are like exiting stage left after their talk. They're sitting in the front row listening to
Yep.
the next speaker. And so it's created this community year after year of the past speakers come back and then they're a part of it and then they bring their teams and and it's just like been this really beautiful build. And
Mm.
I've gotten to witness that firsthand too, because prior to being the president, I've been coming for now 11 years. I've been coming since the very beginning. And I remember my early days of being like, oh gosh, I just talked to the CMO of Vice and I just got like to talk to the Dallas Cowboys. And like, this is like just that star effect that it has
Yeah.
where you're just like walking through the hall. But it's a pretty amazing experience. I'm so grateful that you got to be a part of it. And
Well, I got to even I got to experience what you just described because I was geeking the beep out about your NFL panels because I'm
yeah,
obsessed with all
it's
things
so good.
NFL and marketing. And I remember it was Brandon Marshall, who's a former, football
Mm-hmm.
player for the Seahawks, and now he does these really cool things with like, athletes and whatnot. And so, because I'm a speaker, I got to go behind the stage with like the speaker lounge, and I was like, I'm definitely taking. It's the only time I did it, so I'm like, I'm definitely taking advantage of this. So I like ran behind the stage, and I was like, Hi, I'm Veronica. He's like, Oh, I know who you are, Mimi. I'm like, Excuse me, because he had gone to my session the day
Cool.
before. And he's like, Yeah, I love identity marketing. And then he gave me a cell phone. I'm like, How is this happening? So I can genuinely attest to the fact that like speakers watch other speakers. We're all learning from each other, and like yes, hold on. Can I need you to tell the story on this podcast because you very briefly was like, yeah, I used to attend. No, no, no. Tell the people you're like, was it like what your first experience, how much you went through to arrive at the gathering for your
Oh
first
gosh.
time?
Oh, I've got so many of these, but yeah, the one that I
Yeah.
told at the VIP dinner. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So the gathering started in 2014. I've been coming since then. And like
Mhm.
back in the day, I used to have a magazine and used to trade a page of my magazine for an ad for the gathering for my ticket. And then I would bring my team the next year and I'd come. Like it was just
Mhm.
this thing. I was like, this place is the coolest. I must
Yeah.
continue to come. Fast forward to 2016, I'm in Vancouver and it's a week out from the gathering. The weather is
Mhm.
terrible. The snowstorms, like it's crazy. I have a standby pass and for my ticket, and I can't get out. So I keep getting delayed and keep getting delayed and delayed. Every flight from Vancouver to Calgary is canceled.
Yeah.
So the clock is ticking. It's ticking, 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 and I'm like, I'm not going to make it. How am I going to get there? Like a miracle needs to happen for me to get on this plane. And finally, my husband and I commandeer a budget rental car. And we're like,
Commandeer.
we're just, we're okay. You know what? We'll drive. And it's a 10-hour drive. And it was 6 p.m. at night. And the gathering is now it starts the next day. So we get in the budget, we start driving. The roads are treacherous, and it's now like almost midnight, and we can't continue. It
Yeah.
is not safe to continue. So we pull over on the side of the road. We have a little nap. We wait till sunrise comes up. We're literally like, it's terrifying. Like there's semis going by us as we're
Yeah.
trying to get at some Z's on the side of the street. Um, and then finally, we get up in the morning and we're on our final stretch. We got 4 or 5 hours to get to Banff and we do, and we make it there. And so I was like, I made it. We went through all this and we roll up and, needed to stop at one of the gas stations and like change the clothes and shower and like make myself presentable or whatever, but I made it there. And that's just one of sort of the examples of, the things that we've done to to get places and we don't really understand the weight of it. Steve Jobs has this quote, and it's, you can't collect the dots looking forward. You can only collect the dots looking backwards. And for me, there's so many of these dots looking backwards that were really
Yep.
serendipitous of the things that I sacrificed or the things that I did to get to the gathering that I now look at and I'm like, oh, that's why this was the not miss event. That's why this had to be a thing. This is why I slept on the
Mhm.
side of the road.
Risk my
Yeah,
life.
to risk my life to get there, because it's truly, it is a special place and it's magical, the things that come from it.
Well, no, let's fast forward. Fast forward because again, you were attending as a business owner yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
now here you stand as the newly appointed
Mm-hmm.
president of the
Mm-hmm.
freaking gathering. Like it was so cool because again, I didn't have this historical context. I just thought you were so nice to invite me, and there I am watching you on stage being introduced as the new president, sitting down and sharing your vision for this really special community. And I'm like getting
Mm-hmm.
emotional because then I see Ryan, being very vulnerable in his opening keynote, talking about some significant human loss that he had
Mm-hmm.
experienced in the year he was supposed to train you as his like presidential replacement. He's experiencing this loss and he's just giving you flowers, loving on you for being there for him
Mm-hmm.
when he should have been there for you. And I'm like, this is the most
Mm-hmm.
corrective emotional experience I've ever had. Like
It was pretty
it was
powerful.
so beautiful. The whole room.
Yeah.
It was so special. But yeah, here you stand as the president
Mm-hmm.
of the gathering. Like what is, because we tell a lot of stories on this podcast of people leaving employment to do and pursue their own thing. You've done the opposite where you've come
Mm-hmm.
back in, and I want to talk about what that has meant for your identity, your leadership lessons. Like walk me through this transition, this moment in your
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yeah, this is so, it's so real. And it's very interesting. I've been reflecting a lot on this because I am doing the opposite thing
Yep.
right now. The entrepreneurial dream. I've actually had to, I've actually, it's been a really interesting process for
Mm-hmm.
me, almost like grieving that. But I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years. In fact, I was born into a family of entrepreneurs. My first job was selling herring off the dock when I was 7 years old. When I was a kid, my vision was I want to be CEO. Like this is my whole life has just been this. This is the role.
Yeah.
And so when I had my first business, was a marketing agency, my office space was actually out of the Cult Gatherings office. And so I've known these guys for many years. I've partnered with them in different endeavors and collaborated with them and been in close proximity, and they've seen me build multiple different businesses over the years. And there was always a tap on my shoulder once a year. It was my annual invitation to come step into this role. And I was very hard bent on, nope, I'm good. I'm building my own thing. I'm fine. And I took a lot of the experiences that I had at the gathering to build my own movements and my own
Mm-hmm.
conferences. I've had communities of leaders and women and all across Canada, and had a lot of success with taking the inspiration I've had from the back end of the gathering into my own thing. Um, and then I went through a very big personal identity shift, my own dark night of the soul. I
Tends
think
to
like we
happen.
all did during COVID. And I think in 2021, I had a really significant breakdown that led to it was the breakdown that led to the breakthrough, and a real wake up call for me that if I continued to lead in the
Mm-hmm.
way that I was, and running as fast as I was without taking care of myself, that I wouldn't, my days would be pretty numbered pretty quickly, and I couldn't do it anymore. So once I saw that, I really couldn't look backwards and had to really shift how I was building my business, my approach to business. And I did. I took a hard right turn. I really started coaching and leading my community to how do we build a business without killing ourselves, and was working with a lot of different women in a lot of different organizations and building healthy cultures and healthy teams. And it was just like a new road for me and a new path. And then fast forward to 2023, I got my annual call from Ryan, and he says, "Hey, let's meet up." And this year it felt different. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. This could be an interesting timing. And by all accounts and measures, like I was winning. Like there's so many things that are going great in my world that I had evolved. And, you know, when I sat with him, I sat down and he really painted the picture of what he saw for the community and the evolution and the expansion from just a 3-day event into a business festival and a 365-day experience. And I saw myself in that vision, and I really saw that I could contribute a lot to that vision based on the experiences that I had had. And I felt really confident that, you know, hey, this is an opportunity for you to actually step into the things that you stand for and the things that you're coaching. And this is an opportunity to be a part of something bigger. And so I said yes, but it wasn't an immediate, like, I wasn't even fully bought into my full yes. And I'm a all in person. I'm like a yes person. So I was all in the work and I was doing it. However, there was a part of me that felt like, am I selling out as an entrepreneur? Am I selling myself short? And I sat with that and I really questioned it. And I was kind of holding these two worlds of, I can create a bigger impact over here. Here's a bigger stage. Here's, you know, my work is really needed here right now and I can do a really great job at this. But then there was also a part of my vision that was kind of dying at the same time. And that was how that at the initial part. But then about 6 months in, they really married together. And I realized that there was nothing dying. there was nothing dying. If anything, this was an opportunity to really propel me forward. I had resources and support behind me that I had been craving and missing. I wasn't doing things alone anymore. And I always had team, but it was, you know, it was a smaller team, as you know, like when you are the brand and the face and the thing, like you're also,
yes.
you touch every part of the business. Right. And so, there was a part of me that no matter what I would do, I was just like always end up exhausted and burnt out because I had to put in all the hours to make it all work. And now, you know, with a fully functioning team, I get to play in my zone of genius every day and I get to play in my strengths every day. And it's such an entrepreneurial company and I have full autonomy and you know, I have like Ryan and Chris are amazing, the founders. And they've really just like given me their trust, which is incredible. And I feel so grateful. It's been one of the most expansive years of my life because I've been able to uh, let go of the need to do everything alone. And, you know, I think it's a Simon Sinek quote. It's like, you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, do it together. And I just like really get to experience that and feel that every day. And I'm excited. I'm excited to take, you know, some of the things that have been the best parts of my business before, like the community building aspect, like the coaching aspect, um, groups, retreats, all of that. I'm excited to build that in here. And I think that they now really get to like, it really gets to expand together. So,
Well, I have so many things that you said that I'm just like 100%. First and foremost, I don't ever think experiences are wasted. Ever. I just don't think, whether universe, God, whatever one person might believe or just subscribe to, but like I'm hard pressed to think that anything that I go through is ever wasted or not brought forward in some capacity.
totally.
And so the fact that like Ryan lovingly like tapped you on the shoulder for so many, I mean, talk about persistent on his part. Good job, Ryan. But you had to amass that individual experience and grit and
Totally. I wouldn't have
resilience
been
and
ready
all
for
of
it.
it. Correct, right? It's a
Wouldn't have
different
been ready for it.
arena.
Yeah.
And now you're in the Coliseum. Like it's a different stage.
Yeah.
It's a different magnitude than what you were doing before. So that, I think one, that's really cool. Two, I noticed that you brought this to the gathering this year, and some of the most popular sessions had nothing to do with marketing strategy and tactics. It was about mental well-being, sustainability, taking care of ourselves. I know when you and I did the inner sanctum, but you have to explain what that is. But when we did our inner sanctum after my keynote presentation, a lot of the questions we were getting specifically, but not just exclusively the women, but a lot of the women were around, how the hell do I do what I do? How do you do what you do as mother, as this, as whatever, and all the roles that we carry? And so that was really interesting to me. And I know that you're bringing that even more so in some of the plan sessions and speakers that you have. So it's not just the nerdy part of the marketing world, but it is the sustainability of the visionary leaders who deploy those strategies.
Totally.
First, explain what Inner Sanctum was, because I've never seen this done. I tell everybody about it. And then two, I want to talk about why you think again, men and women both do it, but I think women are way more susceptible to burning
Hmm.
themselves to the nth
Totally.
degree. Why? But first, explain inner sanctum.
So inner sanctum is probably, yeah, it's secret sauce at the gathering.
Yes.
It's a wonderful experience, and I think especially in this world where we're all about like how do we get the recording of the content and make it into a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
other things, and like this keynote turns into like 5 reels and all the things. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, we're actually going to strip that all away, and we want to have a real conversation that no one else will hear. It is off the record. Give us the real, no filters,
Mm-hmm.
no phones in the room. Like when, these are small, intimate forums for people to come in and just enjoy this experience and hear from, one of the speakers or the brands or whoever's there. Like, what is your real experience? How did you really handle that? How did you navigate that challenging thing? And I think these are the most refreshing conversations, because this is the most human part of building anything or being a leader, is like, what are you up against? Not what's your success story, not what are your 7 steps to success, but like, what do you struggle with? Because I'm struggling with it too. And this is how we really connect. As we all get to be seen and heard in other people's stories. So yeah, we hide, we take cell phones away. They go in cell phone
Yup.
jail. When you get there, you sit on bean bags. Veronica and I don't have a mic. It's just, hey, like, who's got questions in the audience? And I think I gave us a thought starter from your talk, but it's completely community led and what's real in the room, which is amazing.
I loved. I think I'm pretty sure I talked about my sex life. Like things came out that I'm like, I have never disclosed this. But like, yeah, as soon as you walk in, there's literally this little contraption that you put a cell phone in, like almost like an individual like PO box little slot.
Mm-hmm.
It is when she says locked, I'm talking like the phones are locked,
I need
and
one of these
then
at home.
yeah, and then yeah, there's like 40 or less humans in this small room, and we are just talking about the real stuff across there was no limitations. It was really whatever
Mm-hmm.
I felt comfortable disclosing, the questions that were being asked. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah,
And big
I
fan. I
love
think
it
it's
too.
really well, it's cool because your total event is like, over 1,000 people. You're looking at like what, 1,200, 1,500
1,500.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have these on purpose curated moments of intimacy, and I know you guys are going to do it with your retreats as well, which is also less than 20 people, but like
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think it's so admirable what you guys are doing. You have growth goals without jeopardizing intimacy, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really difficult to do, and thus far I've been very impressed. So
It's
there's your
foundational.
flowers,
Yeah. Thank
because
you.
deserved. Now,
Yeah, it's foundational.
why do leaders burn themselves? Because it is self-imposed. Like I want to blame the patriarchy because Barbie, but I also want to blame societal expectations. Or like it's easy to point the fingers, but if I'm being really radically honest too, I think the judgment day is when I look in the mirror. I'm like, a lot of my stress is self-imposed. A lot of my inability to just chill the f out is self-imposed. Why do we do this to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's such a layered question. And like it's so different for all of us. I can
Yeah,
speak to my experience, and I
please.
can speak to, the conversations I've had at the table with other high performing leaders. Personally, I'm like a card carrying Enneagram 3 achiever, like
Punch
manifester.
card.
Let's go. Like, I got my punch card. Okay. It's exhausting.
Hmm.
I've been trying to keep up with myself my whole life. And, truthfully, the work that I have done, I realized that it's all these childhood experiences for me that were really unexamined and not looked at. And I was trying to, I was like operating from this place of proving myself or needing validation or needing to do more, or just had this, my vision of how I was identifying, and my definition of success was do more, get more results, do it faster, get more degrees, get more credentials, go go go. And then like my dark night of the soul was literally, I just completely fell apart and snapped, and I realized I had been holding all this self-imposed pressure, all these things, holding it all together, thinking I had to have it all perfect and do all these things, but I was unfulfilled. And I think for me, like, it was just it was like these expectations that were put on myself from an early age as a kid. I remember like the dining room table at my grandparents. It was just always this comparison of, well, Susie's going to law school and good and going to Ivy. It's like, okay, cool, great. But I was great, good for Susie. But I compared myself to that, and all I heard, what I made that to mean when I was a kid was, no matter what I do, it's not enough. And then I chased that, and I built a whole business around it, and I built a whole life around that. And once I realized that that was actually just like a story that I created when I was a kid, and could untangle that and realize that that actually is not it, I actually got to start to experience a little bit more peace in myself and a little bit more peace in my life. I think that many of us are up against like an endless race that we created. Like, there's no finish line.
Yeah.
There's literally no finish line. There's zero destination. We're at the destination. Currently, right now, today, we are at a destination that we set out for ourselves at some point in the past. But most of us, if we're continuing to achieve, we're flying right by the current goalpost, and we're just creating another one, you know? And it's truly exhausting. And I think there's a superpower and a shadow in that, because has that belief gotten me very far in my career?
Yep.
Absolutely. Like, absolutely. Am I so grateful? And do I love that part of me that is like, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to stay up late, and I'll like put in the reps. Absolutely. I love that version of myself. And I also know that I have to be really mindful, and I have to take pause, and I have to learn how to turn her off sometimes. And I have to learn how to celebrate along the journey. And I have to learn how to trust the process and enjoy the process a little bit. And that's not always easy. But if we don't learn how to do that, we'll continue to just spin all the plates and, you know, like always be thinking about, I've got to be the one to do it all. And that's the rat race. That's the true rat race. I think one of the most powerful things that I learned over the last few years in untangling myself from myself is, you know, we're always, especially as high achieving leaders, we're always going to have a lot of balls in the air, but we really need to understand which one of those balls are rubber and which one of those balls are glass. And the glass balls we can't drop, they will smash. But the rubber balls, they have some flexibility. And if we're really clear on which balls in our lives are glass and which one are rubber, that can be a daily check-in to, can I give myself a little bit of grace? Can I give myself a little bit of bounce here? And that's sometimes hour by hour, depending on the season that we're in.
I resonate so deeply with what you're sharing, because me and Scott, my husband, we spent our 15-year anniversary attending a 5-day nervous system regulation retreat.
Ooh, I love that.
In Mexico.
I saw you in some ice bath.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait until you read my recap. It's coming out next week. But one of the things I was reflecting upon these journals that they gave us, that, you know, they kind of wanted us to write 3 pages every morning, et cetera. And I was reflecting on something that I wrote down, where I was like, I don't think I know how to do this well, or I'm still working on this capacity, this ability where I can simultaneously hold enoughness and gratitude for what I have in my current possession while still aspiring for more. Like, I can love my body as it stands today and still want more muscle and more whatever. I can love my business today and still want more.
Yes.
I have not mastered this, so don't come to me for advice, because I really haven't. I'm being fully open here. Like, I'm not your girl. But like, I wrestle with that, because I think there's a part of me that feels like if I feel enough or I'm content enough, there's some, whether it's childhood oriented or not, level of complacency and laziness by just not striving for more. But then to your point, if you're always in the pursuit of more, 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 then you are never fully present and appreciative for what you've already amassed and been given and have
Mhm.
been lucky to receive or earn. And so I am constantly in that tension between trying desperately to be present and appreciative for what it is that I've done and have, and also being my ambitious, high achieving, driven self that I also love about me too. I love both of
Yeah.
these things. And so I don't want to be disloyal to myself. And then that's another layer of complex. So
Yeah. It's a life no, it's a lifelong journey, and I think it's so important that we don't make either part of ourselves wrong.
yes,
And so
agreed.
what you just said is so beautiful, and like holding those two truths together. I think that is the work. There's a quote, I'm just reading it from my desktop because this is a quote I look at every single morning. I think it's Gay Hendricks.
Mm-hmm.
I accept where I am today with love and grace, and I'm committed to working towards my best self. I'm committed to learning about my upper limits and having a good time in the process. And so I think that really resonates for me as well, is like, how can we celebrate the
Mm-hmm.
destination that we're currently
Mm-hmm.
at and continue to work towards
Mm-hmm.
more? And for me, I find that moments of pause, like
Mm.
moments when it's funny talking about cell phone jail, but even that, like the act of putting the phone away or putting the device away or putting the computer away or putting the work away and taking pause in it, creating a culture of appreciation within yourself, within your family, within your relationships, that you can appreciate the journey, the process, the day today, and
Mm-hmm.
then tomorrow you can start high achieving again. Maybe this is just my high functioning way of dealing with it, but
No, I mean, I was doing an Instagram live with Kathy Hiller, and she's like, even God rested on the seventh day. Like on the seventh day, it was enough. And I was like,
we
ooh,
need rest. We
yeah.
need rest.
I'm like,
Like,
okay,
and
on
we got to stop
Sundays.
glorifying the no rest. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, the old part of me. And I love how we had Gary Vee at the conference this year,
Yeah.
because Gary Vee is such a great example of this. Gary Vee, let's just say he was such a catalyst for hustle culture and making us all work so damn hard. But now, if you ask Gary Vee what he stands for today, he's going to say loving yourself.
Yeah. He softened.
And he's softened and he's been through his own shit, right? And I think it's exactly that. Like, there's a season for it, and we have to stop glorifying 24/7 on, like, to be your business is only as healthy as you are.
Mm-hmm.
Your leadership is only as healthy as
Mm-hmm.
you are. And so we have to integrate that into what
Mm-hmm.
we're doing every single day.
Okay. So this brings me to my next topic that I wanted to discuss with you because, as self-aware and as much work as you've done in acknowledging the source of some of those shadows, right?
Mm,
When you are in a leadership position, you are also working with humans who are in different levels of self awareness, in different
totally.
levels of their self work. And yet, your job as a leader is to get the highest performance of everybody that you have in your possession to achieve the goals that the company has given you, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, that's another thing that I find very paradoxical about leadership capacity is like, in the same breath, I want to get my player to do the best that they can do for them and for us. And then at the same time, I want to give enough grace to their humanity and be soft when they need that softer side of leadership, not just the one that like, because I'll go to Orange Theory and my favorite coaches are the ones that tell me, like, they yell at me behind me at the treadmill, like, empty the tank. I'm like, yes, mother effer, I'll empty the, I love it. I love it.
Me
But
too.
if you're constantly that coach type manager,
Yeah.
there's days where like I just lost somebody, like I can't empty the tank, but I'm here. And so like
Hmm.
navigating these waters with people, human beings who are consistently inconsistent. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think we talk enough about how difficult it is to be a great leader because it is so paradoxical in the ability to be both and
Hmm.
knowing when to pull from one. You are a phenomenal leader. You also have built a community of some of the highest performing, highest
Mm,
achieving leaders in marketing positions and beyond. What's your observation of our breed?
yeah. Well, I think that leadership is the work. Like I show up every day and I'm like, oh, that person has just revealed to me where I'm not free. Like the work doesn't
No.
end. The work doesn't end. And if you put your hand up to be a leader, you're literally, it's the ultimate fast track to enlightenment, I will tell you, because
Ooh.
people are mirrors. And the more people you have, the more mirrors are looking back at you on the work that you still have to do. So I'm humbled every single day with my team. And I'm every single day, I feel like, you know, facing the human in the seat is like, how can I support this human to be the best version of themselves? Not how can I, squeeze more work out of them, but how can I create the environment that is going to
Mm,
allow them to thrive? And I think as leaders, all we can do is create the environment. We can't control the outcome, we can't control the results. But it's such an individual thing. Like leadership is just relationships. I want to know everyone on my team, what do you care about? What do you
yeah.
stand for? What are your values? What makes you feel valued? Doing love languages with your team is like the best. I know you've done this too. Yeah, it's like,
Yes,
it's
love
so
it.
great. It's like, you can give someone kudos by getting a gift, or you can give someone kudos by words of affirmation in the team meeting, and which one is going to land for them. I think those things are so important. But all we can do as leaders is really just, help people be the best version of themselves. We did our strat planning for 2025 last week with our team, and one of our icebreaker exercises was creating our players card. So we all created our players card, and everyone put like their fun fact on there. But we also did our superpowers exercise and our shadow exercise. So it's like, here's the thing that comes really natural to me, and then here's the thing that knocks me off my
Mm,
my kryptonite. And it's powerful to see like, oh, one of our team members, evangelist, came up as her superpower, and I'm like, oh, how can we put that to work? How can we allow you to thrive? And our salesperson, she got negotiating. Great. But even in having that conversation around the table, we started to realize that, okay, we don't all need to be 10 out of 10 in all these different areas in the
totally.
business. But if we
Yep.
really learn each other, then we can come together, and like this small little team community that we can be so much more powerful together by leveraging each other's strengths. And then similarly, understanding the ways that we get in our own way, we can support each other and be accountable and help each other be accountable, right? So when we know each other's kryptonite, we can say, hey, I see you're slipping a little bit. Like, can I help you with that? And it's equally as important, if not as important, that we understand the
Yeah.
things that hold each other back. Um, so I think it's leadership is just relationships, and that relationship begins with the relationship that you have with yourself. And if you're willing to have these kinds of conversations with yourself, you're able to create a really powerful and healthy environment for your team to thrive.
Mm. So I had a parenting coach because, if you think leadership is hard, raising
I
humans.
have a Frenchie. I like,
But it's funny how so many different things will parallel each other, right? And so
of
raising
course.
human beings
Yeah.
and being responsible for humans in the workforce, there's a lot of overlap. And so one of the things that she shared are like, these little quotes, these little mic drop moments, little what I call word
Mm,
truffles. I'm like, ooh. And of course, I'm a huge marketer, so I'm like, alliterations is my jam. But she said something along the lines of like, rules without relationship equals rebellion.
yes.
And so, like parents that are overly tyrannical and they're just so rule based without the relational element just equals children who will
Hmm.
just hardcore rebel when they're able to in their older years. So I was thinking about that with like internal leadership. Yes, that can also be applicable, but it's almost like resistance or like when your team members are going through moments of resistance, whether self or just the role or the work or the
Yeah.
busyness of the season, without that managerial, that leadership, that relationship that you're talking about, it tends to equal resentment. And
Hmm.
I find that resentment is one of the most toxic
Yes.
emotions that will corrode a company culture and a team dynamic
100%.
before you even realized it's happened. That's the hard. It's like a sneaky little sniper of an assailant. It's just resentment, it's hard to trace back at the exact moment when the first seed of resentment occurred, but left unmanaged, it just disillusion, disenfranchises humans. Like it's really, really toxic. And so I think about that all the time. Like when your people are going through hard things, are you there in high proximity to the heart? Or are
Mm-hmm.
you still commanding from the tower? Because that's when it gets really
Mm-hmm.
obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, again, so you and I view leadership very similarly. And so it's really
Mm-hmm.
refreshing to have these open dialogues about it.
Yeah, resentment. Oh man, resentment is a hell of a drug.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dark night of the soul it was because I was living in resentment for so long and I didn't have a place to talk about it
Yep.
and I didn't even know it. And so I think resentment, sometimes it needs to be looked at
Mhm.
and you have to be willing to just have the conversation you don't want to have.
Yep.
I have a post-it on my computer and it says the conversation you don't want to have is the one you needed to have yesterday. And it's such a reminder to me all the time that without those, we call them like unwritten agreements.
Yeah.
We create these agreements, but we don't actually talk to the person that can actually like steward the change or do the thing. And then we get upset and then resentment builds. It's like, if you just told me, we could have done something about it. So I think it's so important to look at it and have the challenging conversation and get clear and lead with love in that. We don't often talk about love inside of organizations, but there's two emotions. You're either leading from a place of fear or you're leading from a place of love.
Mm.
And if you're leading with resentment, you're leading from a place of fear. And that creates a tidal wave and a catalyst of like a vicious cycle in your organization of fear and I can't speak up and my truth isn't welcome here and you're right and I'm wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
that think about that energy. If that continues in your team, how will that impact everything, including your bottom line, right? Versus love. If you lead with love, love is the energy of compassion. It's the energy of humility. It's the energy of grace. It's the energy of honesty. It's the energy of accountability.
Yep.
It's the energy of truth. And if you are a leader that brings love to the table and love to all the situations, even if you don't know what to say, but you just ask yourself, like, what would love do right now? Your team is going to feel safe and it kills resentment. It's a softener.
I love that. It's the best North Star you could possibly want, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's also a good litmus test. Like, where are you at? How you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Who's
Mm-hmm.
really commanding the ship?
Yeah.
Because you have those little, again, paradoxical qualities. Like it is. Oh gosh, being a leader. Okay,
It's hard.
You know this as a podcast listener that the last question is for the guest to ask.
Yes.
So dun dun dun. Um,
I was thinking about this morning. I was like, what's my question? So I wrote down three
oh
and I was
no.
like, we'll see which one makes more sense. But
Okay.
one of them was about Taylor Swift. We'll do that later. We
Okay.
won't use that. We are on the precipice of a new year as this is being recorded. I don't know when this will be released, but right
Mhm.
now we're coming to the end of 2024.
Mhm. Mhm.
2025 is right around the corner.
Mhm.
We're in a constant unfolding of our own leadership, our own identity,
Mhm.
specifically for you and your identity. I'm curious for you what that next edge is for Veronica in 2025. What's the seed you're planting for you and what's the edge that you're stepping into?
Hot damn. It's a really ducking good question. Just, of course, you had a good one. Now I'm curious the other two too.
We can do the Taylor Swift one if you want, but
No, no, I think it's a really good one because it's funny, you've had one hell of a year in stepping into a new identity. I
mm-hmm.
have also had one hell of a year just again with my sister's breast cancer journey and
Mm-hmm.
just how I saw myself for and how I wanted to lead in a business capacity with my family capacity being more consuming. So yeah, and then unbeknownst to me, I was going to get that little tap on the shoulder. It's like, it's time to write a book. I'm like, excuse me, now, this year. Okay, I guess we're doing that. So certainly the identity of author is like
Mm.
really new and fresh and wildly intimidating because some of the people that I love the most or look up to the most like we're recording this and next week I'm interviewing Seth Godin on the podcast and I'm
The goat.
losing my everlasting mind because
So
this
good.
man, how many books do I have in my bookshelf, from this human? And so it is wild to think that like I'm putting a piece of content of that size out there and then the fears come up like, well, what if it's not good enough? What if it's, and
Mm-hmm.
does that really matter as long as it's good enough for me? So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that uncomfortableness that I
Mm-hmm.
can't control. Like you said, the outcomes, like I want
Mm-hmm.
to hold on to the outcomes and influence it and control it. And to some degree, I really cannot. So there's that. I think the other thing that's happening for me is, oh, this is so funny that you're asking me this question because literally yesterday, I'm a manifesting generator. And there was like this little social media post that was like the thing that you think is fun and like has nothing to do with anything is actually super monumental or super purposeful in your
Mm.
overall path. I was like, what the hell does that? It's like your horoscope. Like, what does that mean? And then yet I was telling my husband on the car ride home from our Thanksgiving trip, it was like 7, 8 hours in the car from Florida. But I'm like, of all the talents that I wish I would have had, that I have nowhere close to having is like the ability to sing. I cannot for the, I mean, it's funny, I'm
Mm.
a speaker, but I can't sing and I'm not musically inclined and nor is my family. And I can't read a sheet of music to save my life. And yet I'm like watching Wicked. I'm like, I want to sing, So anyways, I've wanted to this thing. And so my husband's like, well, why don't you just take singing lessons? I'm like, well, that's uncomfortable. Like no. And guess what I did? Literally, Mandy, guess what I just did? I
I
signed up
love
for
it.
singing classes yesterday and I'll start at the
It's so
beginning of the
good.
year. Has nothing to do with anything, or maybe it has everything to do with everything.
I think it has everything to do with everything. This is you stepping into your voice. Like as I'm listening, I'm like, this makes sense. Like we need fully expressed Veronica.
I guess. And so I'm going to start taking singing lessons just because it terrifies the shit out of me. And I feel like, well, if it scares me that bad, then I guess I got to do it. And so I'm
That's the
literally
edge.
leaning, yeah, doing it.
That's it.
I literally am sweating telling you this. I'm like getting hot.
I love this for you. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
Don't expect me on The Voice, but yeah, I just why the hell not? I don't know. Here's the other thing too that I learned at my nervous system retreat. Why people
Mm.
do cold plunging, why they do these crazy things, is because, and I mean I know Andrew Huberman talks about this and all the things, but like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when you do something that your brain and your body do not want to do, you increase that. What is it, like general adaptive capacity? It's called something
Capacity.
or something like that, but basically it's like your ability to do hard things
Yeah. You're proving to
increases.
yourself. Like it's increasing this level of
Yes.
trust with yourself that you can do
Yes.
it because you've done something hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason that some of us in our entrepreneurial relationships with our own businesses become toxic is because we think the business should fulfill all of those needs. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, no, it should not. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yes, do I have growth edges in my business daily, weekly? For sure. But why can I not also use singing lessons as a way for me to increase my capacity to do hard things? It has nothing to do with it, but it benefits everything,
But it
whether
does.
my
How you do one thing is
parenting.
how you do
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's funny you're asking me this question, the timing of it, because I just signed up for
Yeah.
classes.
So perfect. Well, I'm celebrating you for that and I love it.
Thanks. Don't ask me to sing. Maybe one day, but so
The
anyways,
world
yes.
needs more fully expressed leaders in their power, in their
That's
voice.
funny.
So good.
I'm in love with you.
Our friendship is just beginning. I'm
I
so
know.
grateful we connected
I
and
know.
I can't wait to see where we go from
I
here.
know. I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see. And you know this, and I've said this, and I'll say it publicly on this, but like, I'm down for whatever you want. Like, ride and die, however I can support you in this role, whatever role.
Mm,
Like, I'm just such, I know that you said you were a fan of mine, but that the tables have turned. I am
mm,
now the bigger fan of you and all that you stand for. So just know
love you. Much love to you. Yes.
that.
Join us for our retreat.
Yeah. Until next time,
Until
friends.
next time.
Thanks for listening today. If you've loved what you heard, make sure to rate the show, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us get the Rainmaker podcast in front of more passionate marketers just like you. And if you're ready to transform your marketing from buy this to be this, pick up my new identity marketing book available on my website at veronicaromney.com. Until next time, my friends, keep making it rain.